The incarceration of Indigenous people are becoming more common throughout the world. Some of these Indigenous cultures that we have decided to focus on are the Indigenous people from Australia, Native Americans, and Native Hawaiians.
Aboriginals, or the Indigenous people of Australia, show to have an alarming incarceration rate. Data from the Australian Bureau of Statistics show that in 2007, the imprisonment rate was 1,800 per 100,000 of Indigenous population, and in recent years, the numbers went up to almost 2,500, showing a steady imprisonment rate increase. When comparing these numbers to the non-Indigenous Australians, which is about 100 to 200 per 100,000 of Indigenous population, there seems to be concern about equality among the Aboriginals. These high rates are caused by the living situations most Aboriginals go through, which are usually in poverty areas, and not to mention the police discrimination against them. The living conditions in these prisons aren't any better as well. It's shown that Aboriginal prisoners are 10 times more likely to have risk of death compared to the Western Australian population, and 3 times greater than the Indigenous community. This is due to the fact that there is a higher risk of bloodborne viruses from fighting, injections, and piercings. Not to mention that more than 50% of Aboriginal prisoners have substance abuse, also suffer from mental illnesses, which leads to suicide. Recently, efforts have been made by the Australian Law Enforcement Commission to investigate how fairly Indigenous people are treated in the prison systems.
Currently, there are an overwhelming amount of Native Hawaiians incarcerated in Hawaii, as well as in the mainland. According to prison policy statistics, there are 7,400 people incarcerated in Hawaii, majority of that number being Native Hawaiians. Many of the Hawaii prisoners have been moved to Saguaro Correctional Center in Arizona due to overcrowding. There are over 1,300 detainees from Hawaii housed there. Besides those that are incarcerated, there are a total of 30,000 people that are somehow in the criminal justice system, whether they are incarcerated, on parole, or on probation. OHA strongly believes that Native Hawaiians face discrimination in the criminal justice system, as opposed to other racial or ethnic groups in Hawaii. Since 1977, the number of people incarcerated in Hawaii has grown 900%. Native Hawaiians make up 24% of Hawaii's population, but 39% of the incarcerated population. It is also believed that Native Hawaiians receive longer prison sentences than other racial or ethnic groups, and they also make up the highest percentage of people incarcerated in out-of-state facilities. Despite the large number of Native Hawaiians being incarcerated, there are some positive events happening at some of these prisons. In Waiawa Correctional Center, a minimum security prison, and Saguaro Correctional Center in Arizona, some of the men are able to step away from the prison to celebrate the Native Hawaiian tradition of makahiki. Some inmates are also offered classes on Hawaiian culture, history, and language. It is viewed as a type of therapeutic practice where the men can learn about their culture and get in touch with their ancestors spiritually.
Native Americans are another indigenous group where incarceration has been a big issue. Between 2010 and 2015, the number of Native Americans in federal prisons increased by 27%, and local jail populations have almost doubled. The incarceration rate has increased by 4.3% each year, compared to 1.3% for all other races combined. The youth incarceration rate is twice as high as the national average. Native Americans are usually prosecuted under federal law, which carries harsher sentencing than state laws. The issue of personal and cultural bias plays a role in incarceration rates, and Native Americans are more likely to be killed by police than any other racial group. Youth are 30% more likely to be prosecuted for crimes than national averages. Native Americans are overexposed to many of the factors that lead to crime. Homelessness is prevalent, and Native American homeless double the proportion of Native Americans compared to the U.S. population. Native Americans have a high school graduation rate 12% lower than the national average, and on reservations, it's even lower at 30% below the national average. Resources like rehab centers, probation offices, and family centers are often located in urban city centers away from reservations. Many times these are out of reach both physically and financially. The poverty rate of Native Americans is 28.4% on reservations compared to the national average of 12.7%. The disparity in incarceration rates can be masked or hidden due to the small number of Native persons and their lack of representation. But the problem of incarceration among indigenous cultures is a troubling issue with a network of causes. most of which can be traced back to historical traumas. Through proper funding and community efforts, this problem can be addressed to the benefit of everyone.